Chapter 5 of The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg is titled Starbucks and the Habit of Success, when willpower becomes automatic. In this chapter, Duhigg examines the habits and routines that led to Starbucks' success as a global coffee chain. The chapter begins with the story of Howard Schultz, who joined Starbucks in 1982 as the director of marketing. At the time, Starbucks was a small chain of coffee shops in Seattle. Schultz was struck by the passion that Starbucks founders had for coffee and the experience of drinking it. He believed that Starbucks could become a national brand if it focused on creating a unique customer experience. Schultz left Starbucks in 1985 to start his own coffee company, Il Giorno, which was later acquired by Starbucks. When Schultz returned to Starbucks as CEO in 2008, he focused on revitalizing the company's culture and customer experience. He believed that by creating a culture of excellence and empowering employees, Starbucks could continue to grow and succeed. Duhigg argues that Starbucks' success is due in part to its focus on creating habits and routines that reinforce its values and goals. For example, Starbucks baristas are trained to follow a set of coffee-making rituals that ensure consistency in the quality of drinks. These rituals include grinding the beans just before brewing, using a precise amount of coffee, and steaming milk to a specific temperature. In addition to these coffee-making rituals, Starbucks also has a set of customer service standards that are designed to create a positive customer experience. These standards include greeting customers with a smile, learning their names and preferences, and offering suggestions for new drinks to try. Duhigg argues that these habits and routines have become automatic for Starbucks employees, which allows them to focus on providing excellent customer service and creating a welcoming atmosphere. By creating these habits and routines, Starbucks has been able to maintain its high standards of quality and customer service, even as it has grown into a global brand with over 30,000 stores worldwide. The author also discusses the role of willpower in creating and maintaining habits. He argues that willpower is a limited resource that can be depleted over time. However, by creating habits and routines, we can conserve our willpower and make it easier to maintain good habits over the long term. Starbucks' focus on creating habits and routines for its employees has helped to make excellent customer service and coffee-making skills automatic, so that employees can perform these tasks without having to rely on willpower. Overall, Chapter 5 of The Power of Habit highlights the importance of creating habits and routines that reinforce our values and goals. By focusing on creating good habits, we can make positive changes in our lives that become automatic over time. Furthermore, by conserving our willpower through habits and routines, we can make it easier to maintain these habits over the long term. Starbucks' success is a testament to the power of creating habits and routines that reinforce a company's values and goals. In Chapter 6 of The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg explores how leaders can create new habits through crisis and design. Duhigg argues that crises can be an opportunity for leaders to change habits and create new ones, but they can also be a threat if leaders fail to act. Duhigg begins the chapter by recounting the story of Paul O'Neill, who became the CEO of Alcoa in 1987. O'Neill was known for his focus on safety, and he made it a priority to create a habit of safety throughout the company. He believed that by focusing on safety, the company would improve its overall performance and profitability. O'Neill's habit of safety became a keystone habit for Alcoa, leading to improvements in communication, efficiency, and quality. Duhigg argues that O'Neill's focus on safety was a response to a crisis. In 1985, a gas leak at one of Alcoa's plants had killed a worker, and the company was facing a lawsuit. O'Neill saw this crisis as an opportunity to create a new habit of safety throughout the company. He believed that by focusing on safety, he could improve the company's operations and avoid future crises. Duhigg also discusses the role of design in creating new habits. He uses the example of Rick Warren, the founder of Saddleback Church, who created a program called 40 Days of Purpose to help church members develop new habits. The program was designed to help people identify their purpose in life and create new habits that aligned with that purpose. The program was a success, with thousands of people participating and developing new habits that change their lives. Duhigg argues that design can be a powerful tool for creating new habits. By designing programs and systems that encourage new habits, leaders can create lasting change in their organizations and communities. However, design alone is not enough. Leaders must also be willing to embrace change and take risks in order to create new habits. Finally, Duhigg emphasizes the importance of leadership in creating new habits. Leaders must be willing to take risks and challenge the status quo in order to create new habits. They must also be willing to listen to feedback and adjust their strategies as needed. Duhigg argues that leaders who are able to create new habits through crisis and design are the ones who are able to lead their organizations to long-term success. Overall, Chapter 6 of The Power of Habit highlights the role of crisis and design in creating new habits. By using crises as an opportunity to create new habits and by designing programs and systems that encourage new habits, leaders can create lasting change in their organizations and communities. However, this requires leadership that is willing to take risks and challenge the status quo. In Chapter 7 of The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg explores how companies like Target use data analysis to predict and manipulate customers' habits. Duhigg argues that companies can use the habits of their customers to their advantage by creating personalized marketing strategies that encourage customers to make certain purchases. Duhigg begins the chapter by describing how Target used data analysis to identify customers who were likely to become pregnant. By analyzing the purchasing habits of women who had previously purchased baby products, Target was able to create a predictive model that identified women who were likely to become pregnant. Target then used this information to send targeted marketing campaigns to these women, offering them discounts on baby products. Duhigg argues that Target's success in predicting and manipulating customer habits is due to the company's use of big data. By analyzing vast amounts of data on customer behavior, Target was able to identify patterns and predict future behavior. This allowed the company to create personalized marketing campaigns that targeted individual customers based on their habits and preferences. Duhigg also discusses the ethical implications of companies using data analysis to manipulate customer habits. He argues that while companies have a right to use data to understand their customers, they also have a responsibility to use that data in an ethical and responsible manner. Companies should not use customer data to manipulate their behavior or exploit their vulnerabilities. Duhigg concludes the chapter by emphasizing the importance of understanding the power of habits. By recognizing the role that habits play in our lives, we can become more aware of how companies use our habits to manipulate us. We can also use our understanding of habits to create positive changes in our own lives. Overall, Chapter 7 of The Power of Habit highlights the power of data analysis in predicting and manipulating customer habits. While companies have a responsibility to use customer data in an ethical manner, the use of big data has the potential to revolutionize the way that companies interact with their customers. By recognizing the role that habits play in our lives, we can become more aware of how companies use our habits to their advantage, and we can use our understanding of habits to create positive changes in our own lives. In Chapter 8 of The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg explores the idea of social habits and how they can be harnessed to create social change. He examines two examples, the Saddleback Church and the Montgomery bus boycott, to illustrate how social habits can be used to create positive change in individuals and communities. Duhigg begins by describing the Saddleback Church, a mega-church in Southern California that has grown rapidly over the years. He explains that the church's success is due in large part to its ability to create a sense of community among its members. The church encourages its members to participate in small groups, where they can share their experiences and support one another in their spiritual journeys. Duhigg argues that this sense of community is created through the formation of social habits, which encourage members to interact with one another in meaningful ways. Duhigg then turns to the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. He explains how the boycott was able to succeed due to the formation of social habits among African American residents of Montgomery, Alabama. Duhigg describes how the boycott leaders were able to create a sense of community among the boycotters, which allowed them to sustain the boycott for over a year. He argues that this sense of community was created through the formation of social habits, such as the habit of sharing information and the habit of supporting one another. Duhigg concludes the chapter by discussing how social habits can be harnessed to create positive change in individuals and communities. He argues that social habits are more powerful than individual habits, as they are reinforced by the support of others. He suggests that individuals who want to create positive change in their communities should focus on creating social habits that encourage people to work together and support one another. Overall, Chapter 8 of The Power of Habit emphasizes the power of social habits in creating positive change. By examining the examples of the Saddleback Church and the Montgomery bus boycott, Duhigg illustrates how social habits can be used to create a sense of community and support among individuals. He suggests that individuals who want to create positive change in their communities should focus on creating social habits that encourage people to work together and support one another. In Chapter 9 of The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg delves into the question of whether we are truly responsible for our habits, given that much of our behavior is driven by unconscious processes in the brain. He explores the neurology behind habit formation and argues that while habits are not entirely under our conscious control, we still have the ability to change them. Duhigg begins by describing the story of Eugene Pauly, a man who suffered from severe brain damage that left him unable to form new memories. Despite this, Pauly was able to develop a series of habits that allowed him to navigate his daily life. Duhigg uses Pauly's story to illustrate the idea that much of our behavior is driven by unconscious processes in the brain, rather than conscious decision-making. Duhigg then turns to the science of habit formation, explaining how habits are formed through a process called chunking. When we repeat a behavior over and over again, our brain begins to recognize the pattern and create a chunk of neural activity that makes the behavior more automatic. Duhigg argues that once a habit is formed in this way, it can be difficult to break, as the brain has become wired to expect the behavior. However, Duhigg also emphasizes that we still have the ability to change our habits, even if they are not entirely under our conscious control. He suggests that the key to changing habits is to understand the habit loop, as explained in Chapter 1, and to consciously interrupt the loop by changing the cue, routine, or reward associated with the habit. By doing so, we can create new neural pathways in the brain that allow us to form new habits. Duhigg also explores the idea of willpower, and whether it is truly a finite resource that can be depleted over time. He suggests that while there is some evidence to support this idea, it is also possible to strengthen our willpower through the development of new habits. By consciously practicing self-control in one area of our lives, we can develop the neural pathways that allow us to exert self-control in other areas as well. Duhigg concludes the chapter by suggesting that while we may not be entirely responsible for our habits, we still have the ability to change them through conscious effort and the development of new habits. He argues that by understanding the science of habit formation and the power of the habit loop, we can take control of our behavior and create positive change in our lives. Overall, Chapter 9 of The Power of Habit provides a nuanced exploration of the question of whether we are responsible for our habits. Duhigg emphasizes the role of unconscious processes in habit formation but also argues that we still have the ability to change our habits through conscious effort and the development of new habits. By understanding the science of habit formation and the habit loop, we can take control of our behavior and create positive change in our lives.